is it will grow bigger, and in actual fact, a bigger storm that's Cat 4 is worse overall because more areas are affected by the wind than even a smaller storm that's Cat 5. But in any case, all this is catastrophic for the areas that are going to get this. They measured, so the Air Force hurricane hunters out there flying through the storm along with the NOAA P3. You discussed earlier about the fact the P3 had such violent turbulence in the southwestern eye wall that they departed the storm. Usually they do that just to be sure that there's nothing wrong with the aircraft. But the Air Force hurricane hunters dropped these instrument packages down through the storm, and they're to measure the pressure. But they also this time dropped it in the eye wall, and they measured 240-mile-an-hour winds at elevation. But this just informs you on what the mountainous areas in Jamaica could experience. Now, won't be quite that because it will be inland to some degree, but incredible winds up above the ocean. I mean, matching the spectacular Category 5 winds on down at the sea surface. So 165 miles per hour is the measurement from the hurricane hunters, just creeping along at 3 miles per hour. And because the water is so warm and deep there, it's stirring up water, which may be holding it back a little bit, believe it or not. But there is very warm water underneath. So the analysis by the scientists that look at this is, yes, they may get some cooling from the slow movement, but not a lot. On 908 millibar pressure, just incredible. All right, there's the close-up on it, and you can make out that it's leaning a little bit left. Actually, the Google model has shown that before it would do that and then turn back on up into the southwest coast of Jamaica, and then a corridor on across that island. But I guess a little bit of good news overall. I mean, the people that are going to be in the way of this, it's just hard to imagine. But Kingston will be not in the worst of it, it looks like. But the heavy rain is already moving into the island, and we're kind of blocked there because there are mountains right in there that the radar doesn't go over, so the moisture actually goes farther. Here you can see, obviously, the eye. And if you look at that really closely, you can kind of make out the green area trying to move around the eye. That might be an indication that there is an outer wall trying to form, which would be the storm expanding and maybe weakening a little and then contracting back again. There's still plenty of time before landfall for that to happen. That just moves the most dangerous part of the storm farther away from the center, farther in the direction of the capital and the population concentration, of course. So there is how big the storm is analyzed to be by the National Hurricane Center. These are 40-plus mile-per-hour winds now encompassing all of Jamaica, especially at elevation. Now, some areas are blocked, obviously, but a lot of mountains there, a lot of wind now just moving in. But this is where the heart of it is, and the core of the storm is down in there, where it's where the hurricane force sustained winds are, and then less than that for the spectacular Category 5 winds. All right, let's go forward in time. So here we are this morning, and by this evening, you see it doesn't move a whole lot, but it's moving in the direction of Jamaica by this time. There are the hurricane force winds, and then the super strong winds are in a smaller area inside that. Well, 165 is forecast for this evening. Going to tomorrow morning, just about landfall time, 8 a.m. Eastern time. That would be 7 a.m. local time there. Forecasting 160, but this is very plus or minus depending on those inner workings inside the hurricane. But there you can see where the hurricane force winds are. Remember, the winds are blowing onshore here. Kingston metropolitan area right on the edge of that. So winds, as of right now, don't seem to be the issue in Kingston. But remember, all this has plowing moisture into these mountains that all has to run downhill, some of it through the capital, through gullies in the capital, and drain out at the same time that the wind is pushing the Caribbean seawater up into the harbor, holding back the drainage. So this is for the big part of the population center there. This is going to be the threat, more from the rain than from the wind. But on this side of the country, I mean, this looks devastating. And for maybe Mandeville in the middle of the country there, right in here, maybe Ocho Rios looks like it's going to get very hard hit. Montego Bay will be on the back side of the wind, but that's pushing water into Montego Bay. So we'll see how these various harbors fare here on either side of the storm based on what we know now. And then moving north, it obviously going to weaken over the mountain some, but still a strong hurricane moving north. Very high confidence in the track. Everybody agrees, Google, European, and Hurricane Center all on the same track there. There's the width of the Google swath, so you can see that it would be just a very low odds chance of the storm getting over super close to Jamaica. This is a very high confidence forecast right now. But we do have the storm surge up to 13 feet. Likely that 13 feet would be over closer to the track, would be in here and in these bays. You see all these bays. The whole southern coast is kind of scalloped in Jamaica. So the bay catches the water, and then the water gets funneled up onto the coast in those bays. So out here, the winds won't be so strong. How will the airport do that's in Kingston Harbor? It's hard to tell because it's a close call now with the storm forecast to come ashore way out here. But hopefully they'll get through that. But the water problem of drainage through the city is a whole different problem. Rainfall, of course, spectacular. The most extreme will be, remember the track is through here, most extreme will be on the right side of the track, but then it comes around this way. So you have pockets of rain, and look, we're up in the feet range here. Also in the very high mountains here outside of Kingston. Exactly how all this drains, I don't know, but you have all these mountains up in here. Everything that catches has to come down somewhere down into the Caribbean Sea. So a daunting prospect here. It all begins later today, so through tonight and through tomorrow. And then the question is, how many areas are going to be cut off? I assume that significant number of communities, there will be no access to them with no communication.